Hello, hello. Welcome back. We want to talk today about chapter 3, and I am going to share the screen so that you can all see the information that pertains to chapter 3. But I just want to give a couple of reminders. Um, I like to treat my students and everyone that's here at the Medical Institute of South Georgia with the highest level of respect and dignity, and we in turn expect the same thing from our students. That means your integrity. We do not allow cheating in the class, on tests, on quizzes, because that's not going to help you on your state exam. Everything we do is preparation for your state exam and for you to actually go to work. Your employers are going to want people of integrity, and so we are insisting that you become, students are people of integrity while you are here. As I mentioned in previous class sessions, our school facility is monitored. So even when I walk out of the class, I can still see what's happening in the classroom. You are not to look at anyone else's paper or ask for answers or give any answers. If you are giving answers, you are just as guilty as the person who is asking for answers. So remember, everything here is preparation. If you have not prepared, then that's not going to be good for your final preparation. And if you're cheating, that's not going to be good because you still will not be ready when it's time to take your state exam. So high integrity, that's what we're looking for. Professionalism, people who have integrity and that want to take care of patients, and you want to know what you're doing. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, welcome back, and thank you for being a part of the Medical Institute of South Georgia. We're very, very happy that you're here, and we look forward to your success. Now, so let's talk about chapter 3. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see, we can all see the things that I feel are important for to review. Wrong one. We want chapter 3. Let's try that again. Here we go. All right, so we're going to look at, let's start the slideshow. We're going to look at understanding residents. Let me get the slideshow to work. Oh, from the beginning, here we go. All right, here we go. So understanding your residents. So they have something called physiological integrity or physiological needs and psychosocial needs. We are not going to stop at every single slide. Some slides I will be skipping over because I want to get to what I know you need to pay more attention to. But I do want you to understand what physiological needs are versus psychosocial needs. Physiological needs that relate to the processes and activities that keep living things alive. Physical, it's the physical of it. Psychosocial has to do with mental and your interactions in terms of emotions, intellect, and spirituality. Some nursing assistant tasks address residents' physical needs, include helping them with eating, eliminating, bathrooming, and grooming. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Notice this triangle has at the very top need for self-actualization. Some people never reach that level. But for elderly people, the biggest priority is safety. Physiological needs, of course, air, food, and water is most important. But then for a lot of elderly patients, that safety and security needs is huge for them. Yes, elderly people do have masturbation. So masturbation is to touch or rub sexual organs in order to give oneself or another person sexual pleasure. Of course, we all already know exactly what that term means, but we're introducing it again to make sure that you know that elderly people, they still have needs too. So, and remember, we're talking about residents' rights. A male or a female, they have a right to the sexual pleasures or to any type of pleasure that they can bring to themselves. We do not have the authority to try to stop them or to keep them from their rights. Now, if they're doing it in the kitchen, in the lobby, we want to disencourage that. But otherwise, they deserve respect and privacy to take care of their own personal needs. A couple things that are not permitted for nurse aides or for any healthcare providers. You don't try to change a person's religion. Tell a resident that their belief or religion is wrong. Express judgments about a religious group. Insist that residents join a religious activity. Interfere with religious practices. Discuss the personal beliefs or opinion either directly or indirectly. So those are things that are not permitted. Holistic care means it involves a whole person. Now, some things that really concerns our residents or patients. Loss of independence can cause poor self-image, anger, feelings of helplessness, sadness and hopelessness, feelings of uselessness, increased dependence, and depression. So what do you want to remember to do? Never treat residents like children, okay? Residents are adults who can make their own choices and should care for themselves as independently as possible. Don't do anything for a resident that they can do for themselves if they're feeling up to doing it. They may be sick and don't feel like doing it, but if it's something that they can do for themselves, you should allow them the opportunity to do it. Cultural diversity, the different groups of people with varied backgrounds and varied experiences who live together in the world. And of course, we all know what bias is. It's like a prejudice. We know about race, we know about ethnicity. The thing I love about these chapters with Hartman is your workbook is going to pull a lot of this information out and force you to look at it. I want you to know that cognitive relates to thinking and learning. Listing one important point about each of these developmental stages in childhood, like infancy, toddler, preschool, school age, pre-adolescence, and adolescence. You should know that ageism is prejudice toward stereotyping of and or discrimination against older persons or elderly. With your stages of human growth and development, remember that the following are not considered normal changes of aging. This information you will see on your local test with us, and you will also see this on your state exam. Like things like depression. Depression, just because a person is elderly or at a certain age, does not mean that they will be depressed. Suicidal thoughts don't come with age. Unable to think logically do not necessarily come with age. Poor nutrition, shortness of breath, incontinence. Even though you see this in some elderly clients or patients, that does not mean that that exists in all elderly patients. That's not like an ageism thing. There are what we call developmental disabilities that are preset at birth or emerge during childhood that restrict physical and or mental ability. It's called developmental disabilities. So what can we do to a person who has some developmental disabilities? Praise and encourage them often. Treat the adult residents as adults, or both guidelines for working with residents with intellectual disabilities. What ways can you think of praising and encouraging an adult resident without treating them like a child? So that's something to think about. You need to know what depression is. It's a type of mood disorder that causes pain, fatigue, apathy, sadness, irritability, anxiety, sleeplessness, and loss of appetite, as well as other symptoms as well, called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. You can also have, a person may also have apathy, a lack of interest in activities. They're just apathetic about everything. Would you like to go down to the social hall? I don't know. Are you gonna eat lunch? I hadn't thought about it. I mean, I really don't know. How are you feeling today? I don't know how I feel. Yeah, this person just apathetic about everything. You're like, oh my God. Okay. Bipolar disorder is a mental health disorder that causes a person to swing from periods of deep depression where they barely want to get out of bed to now they are all excited and they're jumping up and they got bright red lipstick on and a light blue eyeshadow, and they may have colored their hair pink, or which now that everybody whose hair is pink does not mean they're bipolar. But back in the days, a bipolar person would be just manic. They may go on a spending spree and just go use up the credit cards and run the credit card debt up, buying stuff that they didn't even need, because they're in the manic phase with bipolar. So you're either high or you're low, high or low, okay? Just want to make sure you guys are still awake over there. Anxiety is another term you need to be familiar with. Uneasiness, worry, or fear, often about a situation or a condition. Panic disorder, something you want to be familiar with, a disorder characterized by a person having regular panic attacks or living with constant anxiety about having another attack, okay? Phobias, an intense, irrational fear of or anxiety about an object, place, or situation. OCD, how many of you know someone who is OCD, and that's obsessive compulsive disorder, an anxiety disorder characterized by obsessive behavior or thoughts which may cause the person to repeatedly perform or a behavior or routine. Example of OCD. Person's getting ready to go to town or go to church, and they've gotten dressed, but they keep feeling like their hands are dirty. So they wash their hands once they got dressed. They go to the door to head out the door, and they touch the doorknob and realize, oh, that probably made my hands dirty. So they go back and wash their hands again. They come back, this time they got on gloves to turn the doorknob, and now they turn the doorknob, open the door, they pull the gloves off and realize, oh, those gloves probably weren't clean, I need to wash my hands. So they shut the door back and they go back to wash their OCD kind of people, like, oh my God. Or there are some people who are OCD, they haven't been diagnosed, but you know something's wrong with them by their behavior. Post-traumatic stress disorder is what we see with people who've been off to, oftentimes military, the stress and the trauma of what they saw and what they experienced. Oftentimes they're still dealing with that, even though they're no longer under stress. It's post-stress syndrome. Schizophrenia. You need to know what schizophrenia is. It's a type of psychotic disorder, and I am not schizophrenic, that causes problems with thinking, communication, and the ability to manage emotions, make decisions, and understand reality. Schizophrenics oftentimes live in their own world. I don't know how many of you ever saw the movie A Beautiful Mind, and it was about a young man around his 20s who was brilliant, by the way, but when he got to college and the stress of being at college triggered what was already lying dormant in him, and that was schizophrenia. And so he was at college, at the dorm, but not really a part of college or the rest of the people that were there. He had a mental break, and he developed, his schizophrenia came out. Schizophrenia typically don't just come from out of nowhere, it's in your DNA, okay? So different things can trigger it and cause it to come out. Hallucinations is persistent false beliefs. You're hallucinating. Delusions are persistent false beliefs. Cognitive behavior therapy is a type of treatment that's given to people with anxiety disorders and depressions to kind of help snap them out of what they're going through. And it's done, oftentimes they'll put the little pads on the forehead. It's a cognitive type of therapy to try to help that person get out of that slump. We know what terminal illness is. We know about grief. A couple of case studies and scenarios. Advanced directives are legal documents that allow people to choose what medical care they wish to have in case they are unable to make those decisions later. A living will, a document that outlines the medical care a person wants or does not want in case they become unable to make those decisions later, okay? Durable power of attorney, all of that goes along with the living will. Do not resuscitate. You need to know that definition and that abbreviation, DNR. Do not resuscitate. So it's saying in the event, if my condition gets worse, so much so that I cannot breathe on my own, now you can have do not resuscitate with CPR, or do not resuscitate, but give me medicines. So don't do CPR on me. Don't press on my chest. Don't put me on the AED, but give me some medicines to keep me comfortable. So there's different ways you can write the DNR. But DNR is do not resuscitate. Don't bring me back to life. Let me go home and see my father. When a person is in an advanced directive is in place, when an advanced directive is in place for a patient, the nurse aide, this is what your job will be. You want to monitor vital signs and report to the nurse. Comfort measures will continue, like you might go in and do mouth swabs, make sure that, because sometimes people start mouth breathing, and then the tongue will become very, very dry. So you want to take the lemon swabs, and swab around in the mouth to clean the mouth, keep that area clean. CPR and extraordinary measures may be prohibited, but we can do comfort measures, okay? This may also be the chapter where you learn about giving, like they talk about death and dying and how to care for the body once the person has, once the person becomes deceased. So pay attention to those things. Cheyne-Stokes, you need to know about Cheyne-Stokes. It's alternating periods of slow, irregular breathing and with rapid, shallow breathing, along with periods of not breathing. That's Cheyne-Stokes breathing. When a person is experiencing Cheyne-Stokes breathing, they're getting ready to die. That's the inevitable type of respiratory pattern, Cheyne-Stokes breathing. Post-mortem care is care of the body after death. You always want to be careful. Even though the person is deceased, you still treat that body with respect, whether it's just you and the body or you and another healthcare provider. Don't let that other person see you disrespecting that patient's body, because they're going to think that's who you are. That's what kind of person you are. Have integrity. Be that kind of person that even if no one is looking, you are still going to do what's right. So you treat that patient's body, that person's body, even after it has passed, with respect. Same respect you would want someone to treat your body if you were deceased. Okay, that is important. Hospice care, holistic, compassionate care given to people who have approximately 6 months or less to live. You need to know that. Palliative care, the word itself means care given to people who have serious diseases or who are dying, that emphasizes relieving pain, controlling symptoms, and preventing side effects. Palliative care is comfort care. Another word for that is comfort care. Okay, guess what? That's chapter 3. And we are D-O-N-E-D-O. Say it with me now, D-O-N-E. Okay, all right. So that's chapter 3. And understanding residence, make sure you've completed your workbook and get that checked off and get ready for your major exam on chapter 3.